Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Your Guide to Holiday Gift Budgeting. My name is Kelly Blount, and I will be today's moderator. We have an exciting agenda planned for you today on the topic of holiday saving and spending. With that, it's time to go ahead and get started. I'll turn things over to Todd Moore, Director of Education with Trinity Debt Management, to introduce himself and take us through today's topic.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you to everyone joining the call today. It's great to be back with everyone and look forward to sharing hopefully some holiday joy with you and some good tips to motivate you in your holiday shopping over the next couple months. It's hard to believe that we're now here this late in the year looking at how to structure our budget for our holiday spending, and you know, it's just it's been a busy year for all of us. So here we are. Wanted to share with you, as I usually do in our presentations, some of the data that I'm finding out here, some of the expectations, what we might expect as we head into the holiday season, costs, some of what the market is actually producing for us this year. We have experienced record high inflation. We've talked about that over the last year. Those who have joined us in previous calls will know that we've highlighted some of those statistics. We all feel the pain and the pinch of inflation. And I thought it might be interesting just to take a look at, you know, what does this holiday look like considering the last year, couple years with just facing inflation. So looking at the data, tried to put some numbers together for you. You know, we're expecting, the market really is expecting that we're going to have an increase in spending. So, you know, when we think about the holidays, it's very difficult to imagine, you know, folks not spending what they have spent in previous years, or folks just wanting to make sure that they have funds available for their kids and family going into the holiday season. So we'll be talking a lot about ways to kind of do this responsibly. We'll think about some ways that we might finance our holidays a little bit differently this year, but just putting in context, you know, this next couple slides just kind of puts in context where we're at right now and how we might move through this holiday shopping spree without going into too much debt. So again, what do we expect when you're out there shopping? Certainly, if you haven't started already, I'm sure that many of us are now starting to put together some of our holiday plans. You know, I'm getting excited. I love the holidays, so I'm getting excited about the holidays coming up. What we can see here is that despite inflation, you know, 59% of consumers are saying that it will influence how they shop this year, but the numbers are still showing that we would expect growth, you know, an increase in spending over previous year. So that just shows that all of us are shaped in some way by the holidays and how we approach our own personal finances. What's out there in the market for us to take advantage of at this point? There's going to be a lot with online shopping is still really key. I think all of us have shifted in many ways towards this. It's almost commonplace at this point, but more and more we're seeing that that is just reflected. And you can see that when you go out to an actual retail store. Things have changed. So this year, as in previous years, you're going to be looking at a lot of particularly deals that are available online. That's where most folks, that's what the market's anticipating. That's where we're going to find those deals. Not much different than what we've done in many other years. But there are deals to be found. As I was doing the research, there's inventory. Folks are looking to, some of these items may be a little older, you know, because of supply chains and other things. So we haven't had a lot of new product developments out there in the market, but there are deals to be found. And that's kind of what folks are looking at when they do our surveys and kind of consumer sentiment, trying to figure out where this market is heading and how we can benefit from that as consumers and save a little extra money. But as inflation has really shaped a lot of decision making, this story for me was kind of interesting because despite us in the market having, many of us having record credit card debt, most shoppers are saying, yeah, we're going to take on more debt, and And if we are, that's just the way it has to be. And that's reflected here in the numbers. 57% say that they feel that their financial situation is strained, yet we're going to be spending money. The question for us, though, is really putting some parameters around how much we actually are spending and how do we get through this holiday without going deeper and deeper into debt. Again, record credit card debt, record debt from the last couple of years, just having economic stagnation and inflation. But what we see here is that, when you look at the surveys, just trying to look out, folks would say, okay, well, if I have to, go deeper into debt to finance the holidays, then in the coming months, that'll be into 2025, I'll have to skimp on some items that maybe I have to just make some cuts in the future. But we're going to have a holiday no matter what. That's the story that I see reflected in the data. So what you're going to find here is, a whole range of things. Bankrate took a look at, expectations as well. Most folks are looking, again, feeling some pressure, willing to go into debt, and then already kind of thinking about how they might finance this. Now, when I was looking at this, we're going to highlight a couple of things as we move forward in the slides. I want to focus on a couple items that I think are unique to this particular year and caution you about how you may structure some of your holiday spending. And then we'll also talk about how to create what I would consider just to be a reasonable budget for this coming year as we think about all the pressure, inflation, many of us carrying debt, those sorts of things. So that's where we're at with this holiday season. Hopefully that's not depressing everyone, but I think the cautionary tale here is let's be responsible and not move into 2025 digging ourselves into a deeper and deeper hole as we go through this holiday season. Certainly want to enjoy the holidays. I'm excited. I'm sure many of you are as well, but we don't want to enter into 2025 just overwhelmed with debt. As I was looking at many of the numbers, you'll see that families are carrying debts, that really in many ways is higher than we've seen in many, many years. I know certainly since I've been doing this work with Trinity Debt Management over the years, I'm seeing record credit card debt at this point. So concerned about that. I've even carried more debt myself this year just with cost of inflation and kids here at the house. So we're feeling that strain. But I think that today what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to get through this holiday in a reasonable way, create a budget so that you don't feel quite as stressed. And I think a little planning will go a long way. So again, before we move forward into the actual budget details and some good tips for you, again, most of us looking to finance this holiday, there's going to be some opportunities out there that I want you to be cautious, particularly when you're online shopping. This year, buy now, pay later is a really hot thing online. And I'm going to caution you about doing that. And I'll share with you some of the things that I'm seeing here at the office as folks get more involved in these types of finance schemes and the cautionary tale that comes out of that. But as you're shopping online, looking for deals, you're going to come across these types of services. The data really shows here that most folks are planning to shop online. That's where I really want you to be careful. You're going to find those deals, but we also want to be careful about how we finance that over the next over the next couple months. So let's get into this plan, okay? Here we are looking at trying to structure. All of us know that, with the holiday season, as with any other time of the year, there's only going to be so much money to move around. And as you've seen in those last previous slides, folks are just thinking, regardless if I'm carrying debt at this point, one way or the other, we're having a good holiday. Now, you see that reflected. If you've been watching the news, you'll see people talk about that, certainly reflected in the surveys that I've looked at, the data that I've looked at. I would like for you to start thinking about how to just set some parameters, okay? Some spending limits. How do we get through this holiday where we have the best time, but we can also kind of figure out where do we want to land on December 31st? How much debt do I need to carry? Can I afford to carry if I'm heading into 2025 with some debt? Or what is my actual budget at this point? So if we're looking back, and I would encourage you to kind of look back, Did you get into a situation last year where you were overspending? Are you still carrying credit card debt from the last holiday? Well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of folks in the market are still carrying debts over that last year from previous holidays. So we had job losses, we've had other things happen in the economy. So again, this holiday is a little different than the previous couple years where folks have just carried more debt. Really wanted you to be cautious about doing that as you head into 2025. Look back over last year. Did you get outside of what you planned? Did you overspend? Are you carrying more credit card debt? If that is the story, we want you to kind of use some caution as you go into 2025. It's I read somewhere, if you're in a hole, don't keep digging. Again, just trying to put some parameters. I imagine there's going to be folks that will inevitably make some purchases where they will try to finance this over the next 3 or 4 months. Folks are going to have a holiday. The key here is that we just try to maintain some type of budget to do this in a reasonable way. Look back, look at your expenses, kind of have that conversation, figure out how far you want to go if you were carrying debt from last year. Now, the other thing too is that we're going to really focus on kind of narrowing things this year, focusing on some key priorities. Like here, what I've said is, if there's a certain situation that's changed, job loss, maybe your hours were cut, something else that's happened, where can we really just make this budget as tight and clean as possible? If we have to narrow some categories, you have to maybe cut back on travel, or if you have to cut back in some area, we can't, maybe, the house can't look as great as we would like it. We have to cut back on some of the decorations, whatever that is for you. It's about narrowing some expectations so you can focus on some of the key priorities. Every budget, as we always say, has some tension within it. It's those trade-offs that make that tension. What do you give up to gain something else? So that's what you're going to be doing as you work forward in these next couple slides, is just kind of narrowing things, focusing on what's most important for your overall holiday spending. So one of the things we're going to do here in order to get through this in the most stress-free way is we're going to really start thinking about putting together some type of budget. I've got a budget plan for you that you can use through an Excel spreadsheet, and we'll talk about that towards the end, but you'll see in the next series of slides that we'll be talking about categorizing your expenses and really making those hard choices. But the goal here will be that at some point you will be able to use your account through the credit union and the spreadsheet, sit down and really figure out what it is that you want to prioritize. We can actually create a set of numbers. Those will be that's our spending plan. And then this spreadsheet is going to have you engage, not only from your bank account and tracking some of your overall expenses, but it will have you engage in those numbers. So you can actually see if you're in the positive or negative as you move forward, post Thanksgiving, Black Friday, all the good stuff that's around the corner. So we'll be setting that up. We'll be putting some of our numbers together, but now is the time for you to really start thinking about these things, really start to think about, decorations and party plans and having folks over, or how much you're planning to spend. One thing that I did find is, groceries, which have really been expensive over the last 2 years. Certainly don't have to convince anyone on the call what grocery expenses have been. Most of the research that I've found would say that as we get closer to Thanksgiving, there's going to be a number of deals that are available around the Thanksgiving dinner time. So that was one of the expectations, at least that I found, that we may be able to get through that part of our budget in a reasonable way. Some of the food expenses there, most retail stores are looking to try to lure customers in with good deals. We might catch a little bit of a break there, just kind of an aside as we're doing our budget. So we might be able to free up a few dollars there, but now is the time for preparation. Now is the time for us to start thinking about what we want our holiday to look like and start to set some realistic numbers to, for what we can actually accomplish over this next holiday season. How much can we afford? So here are some tips that I found that I think are It's just some good counsel here for all of us, time-tested methods, I think, as we head into this holiday season. Certainly not waiting until the last minute. So we talked about just getting some numbers down on paper, start looking at this. We'll use our spreadsheet here later, but really not waiting till the last minute. What's key here is, I mean, I've done this before, procrastinated on certain things. I thought, hey, there's going to be plenty of stuff out here to buy. I'll just wait, we'll get out there. Next thing you know, everything's picked over. I'm sure many of you have done the same thing. But what we realized through that process is that we wind up overspending. So a lot of the key items or the good deals that were there, they've already been taken advantage of. Whatever stock is left, well, we're kind of scrambling. So it's not targeted. We're kind of looking for items. I'm sure many of you have done the same thing. The key here, though, is not to wait for the last minute. As I've indicated through the research here and just kind of laying out the context for the holidays, there's going to be a moment here kind of right around the holiday season with Black Friday, those sorts of things. If you're online looking for items, whether it's particularly anything that has to do with technology or some other, and there's going to be a lot of great online deals for tech type goods. And then there's also going to be a lot of online deals through Black Friday sales this year, just trying to get inventory out the door. And so old stock that's there, things that maybe are not, I don't want to say that they're dated. I don't mean to imply that, but retailers are just really trying to move things forward as they get into 2025. There will be deals, but don't wait if you're going to retail stores till the last minute. Not only will it become kind of impulsive, and you'll see that theme repeated, but you're also going to just tend to overspend. Okay, so if you don't know already, don't wait. Don't hesitate. Make a plan. Get out there and find the items you need and get out and stay within your budget. Personalized gifts. This is something, think about those items sometimes that, particularly this year, I think, as we're trying to get through this holiday season, is really just kind of narrowing it. Maybe you're not able to get multiple gifts or some of the certain things that you would have done in prior years, but maybe just a thoughtful gift, something that you've really spent some time thinking about how that would make an impact, having someone receive this particular gift, and just work with folks within the family or friends to really target that gift in the best way possible. Again, anything that you're doing there for impulsive shopping is always going to cost you more, whether that's during the Thanksgiving season or whether it's during the Christmas season, holiday season, when you're looking for actual gifts. Either way, you're going to spend more if you're making any kind of last minute or impulsive purchase. So this year, really think about personalizing that gift. What is something that's really thoughtful, you can narrow? For me, I'm doing this with my kids right now. In previous years, I would have tried to go as far and wide as I can to make sure everyone has all the things that they want. Honestly, I'm going to be making some cuts this year, and so things will have to get narrowed down. It's just the reality of my financial situation and others in the economy, no different. We're going to have, some nice gifts. Things are just going to have to be tighter. We're going to have to narrow that list down to the most personalized and the things that are thoughtful and will have an impact. So just a tip to share with you as you think about your budget. I've highlighted the best times already. Those best times really these are pretty well traditional times now as we think about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and I've listed those here, the day after Thanksgiving. It used to be such a rush for folks to go to the stores. Now everything again is shifted towards online, but regardless, looking at this, when you're looking at those online portals, I mean, everything that I looked at in preparation for today's presentation, these two dates just jump off the page. I mean, they, continue to be, for retailers and those within the market, even smaller shops, those sorts of things, these dates are just the key dates. So if you're really looking for some of these deals with, what will potentially be a good Cyber Monday, or looking for things here online, these are going to be two of the most important dates to maybe make some purchases. So not much has changed there. Other things too is, I know that there are, as you go into this holiday season, I think again, we've talked about this as being last minute or impulsive buys, but the tendency to overspend, okay? Anything when you go in and you're stressed and you're looking for those last minute deals, anything that's rushed, whether you wait till last minute, for dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, or even the holidays, the earlier that this starts and the more precise it can be, the better, okay? Because the whole goal here of all this work is to really set priorities, narrow to key items, and then avoid overspending. Part of that overspending will not only come from impulsive purchases, but you might also be tempted to open lines of credit and maybe fall into the debt trap just by saying, okay, I need a little bit more cash to get through the holidays. I think my credit will probably qualify for this particular deal. I think I'm just going to go for it. That's part of that last rush to get through the holiday season. Don't do that, okay? We'll think about some smarter ways to approach that, but it's really about controlling overspending this particular year. So now we've gotten to this point where, we've done some preparation, where we're setting some spending limits. We've got some numbers down on paper, started to think about categorizing those things. We're going to talk about that in a lot more detail. Here's where we really want to try to stick as closely to those spending limits as possible. This will be tough. I think on average, nationally, the numbers are probably somewhere around $1,100–1,200 that is estimated to be spent during the holiday season per family. Certainly, again, that's a national average. There's going to be outliers. There's going to be folks that I would say that's, probably it is an average. So you'll find folks that will certainly spend more depending on income, those sorts of things. But for today's purposes, I'm kind of targeting it somewhere around $1,500 with Thanksgiving and some other holiday stuff built into the budget. Think about what your bottom line is going to be. What is it that you actually have this year, whether cash that you have available, and if it's putting together this budget, how much credit do you want to use? How much cash do you have on hand? And how can you work with maybe other family members to be creative to kind of build a fund? We'll be talking about that as well. So here again, sticking to your spending limits, that'll be something that we use through our bank account at GE, and also through our spreadsheet that we're going to provide to you here in a few minutes. But I would encourage you, if possible, to maybe think about actually creating a shopping fund. You can do this through the bank, through the credit union, where you could put some funds together, start putting some money into an account to build that account. Maybe we don't have a whole lot of time at this point to really build that fund, but even if we can get, $500, $600, $1,000, whatever it might be into this account, as we head into the shopping season, that's $1,000 that we don't have to put on a credit card. So if there's ways to build that fund over the next few weeks just to get into Cyber Monday or whatever that goal may be, having that dedicated fund would be great to put some cash away. And then looking long term, you could also think about having an account set up for next year through the credit union where we could transfer and automatically transfer money over into that account. Much a similar approach to what we might find with building an emergency savings fund. And I've wanted to do this personally for a while. I have struggled myself to do it at times, but this is something that I really would like to do. Is really to set up something where I can actually automatically transfer over for a dedicated account for the holidays. Would love to have that opportunity to do that. Going to encourage you to do that. Simply transfer those funds over. There's ways to round up account, purchases where you round up, and you can talk with the credit union about this, but just small things that add up over the year where you can build that account over time, where next year you would be looking at a significant amount of savings where you can just get through the holiday without too many headaches or going further into debt. So again, just having you think through this, be a little bit creative about how you approach the holidays. So let's get into now talking a little bit about the budget itself, okay? No different than other budgets. What we're talking about here, again, looking at how much we can afford to spend. So there's where you're going to have to really think. I encouraged you to look back, think about what your prior spending was. Again, national average is going to be somewhere around $1,200. Think about what you're actually planning to do, okay? And part of that, start to get some number together, at least on paper, where we figure out this is what we think we can afford to spend this holiday season. And again, if you're planning to make purchases on credit cards or do something else, we want to narrow that spending as much as possible, okay? And part of doing that, again, is creating those priorities. So this is where we're going to really start to look across a whole range of things to think about what is it that we really want to accomplish? What's the outcomes that we want to accomplish through this budget this year? And that will require you to actually categorize expenses. No different than other budgets. This just happens to be our holiday budget, categorizing those spending limits and thinking about how to do that. And I've already talked a little bit about opening that holiday account, but I'm going to be doing this myself next year. I think I'll share with you one thing that I did do this year, but next year I think I'm going to try to do more on opening a holiday account. I got sidetracked with trying to rebuild emergency savings funds this year, so I'm going to be looking into that myself. But I want to encourage you as you're doing this work to maybe think about opening up a holiday account for next year. But again, here we are kind of shaping and narrowing things as we go through time. So these are some of the common items that you will find, not much different than any other budget when we think about categorized expenses, but these are unique to this holiday season. So gifts and activities and charitable giving, food, decorations, those sorts of things. Many of us may travel. All these come with certain costs. So I've built these into a spreadsheet that you're going to be able to have. You'll be able to make some projections, and then you'll be able to actually input through your transaction history. You'll be able to go back and monitor what you're spending in real time, kind of figure out where it will show you whether you're in the positive or negative. And but these are those time-tested things that come up every holiday, and each of them have a cost. So I'm going to encourage you to kind of sit down and write out a list of what those items are and how much they cost. These are your categorized expenses, and we'll be looking at those numbers in a spreadsheet. So I've talked a little bit too about just tracking your spending. So as you do the spreadsheet to set those parameters, narrowing your spending and how we make this a successful holiday, you really will have to watch your money, because we're going to put numbers down, for each category. We're going to assign a number, and then you will track your expenses through your GECU money management tool, or just your account itself, your transaction history, looking at your bank account. So we want to make sure that we're not overspending. So it requires you to engage in that process. Cash is still king. If we can pull cash without using credit cards, that's going to be great. Like I said, if we set up a fund and we start to just put some money in there between now and first part of December, just really trying to put as much money into that fund as we can, or just transfer it over into your savings, cash still matters. $600, $1,000, whatever it might be that we can put into that fund, that keeps it from going on to a credit card over this holiday season. I imagine that most of us, as the data shows, will be using some credit cards to finance, piecing together our financing. We'll probably use some credit cards. Just be careful about what that looks like long term. And then I encourage you, as I always do, to use the money management tool to track expenses. But your overall account is where we're going to continue to track, make sure we're within our spending guidelines. So if you haven't already done this, where you are thinking about the financing side of this challenge, now's the time to really start doing this. We've talked about savings accounts. That might be more long-term for next year, but again, looking at cash on hand, what do you have to work with? Cash matters. It keeps us from going further into debt on credit cards. And then if we are using credit cards, here's where I want to give you just kind of a word of caution, okay? So right now, the retail card market is showing that the average right now, and I tried to pull this from multiple sources, so this is an average. So, and I'm seeing this at the office at Trinity Debt Management. So the average interest rate now on store cards, retail cards, somewhere around 30%. Okay, so remember, we're looking at setting up a budget. You're out shopping. Let's say it's an impulsive buy. Someone says, hey, sign up for a card today. You'll get 10% off. And you say, fine, let's do it. Well, the interest rate on most of those cards right now is 30%. So if we're not planning to pay that off, and we can't really pay that off in the next, 3-4 months, and this is debt that we're going to carry into Christmas of 2025 at 30% interest rate, we can see what this story is going to look like next year. We're going to just go further and further into debt. So want to caution you about that. Again, this year, just shape some parameters here, narrow things down to the essentials, and let's not rush into those kind of card offers because the interest rates right now are extremely high. And I'm seeing interest rates much higher than that. We're seeing rates even 34%, 36%. And then new card offers, there's a lot of new card offers out there. So 21 to 28%. And this is going to be kind of credit score dependent, depending on what these offers are. Just be cautious about opening the new cards. Now, we've talked a lot about credit scoring in the past, opening, closing things, but I just want you to be careful about that this particular year since the rates are so high. The other thing too is, besides just the credit card market, if you are thinking about getting through this period, maybe if your credit is strong, and maybe a short-term loan might be a better way to finance this holiday, say $2,500 or so, rather than just carrying it at a 30% interest rate. Structuring that through a small loan with the credit union over time would be, a structured installment payment, and also would come with some credit consequences. At the end of that term, your score should improve because of your payment history. So there's some ways to enjoy the holiday and do some credit building here at the same time if it's approached correctly, as opposed to just carrying it at a 30% interest rate. And then one of the things I would share with you here is I've done this 52-week challenge where, and you can Google a little bit more about this, but you basically start week 1 with $1, week 2, week 3, it keeps going up based on that. You do it over 52 weeks. The sad part of my story is that my kids finally they caught wind that I had some cash I've been working on here, and they started to rob my piggy bank here at the house. So I didn't quite make it all the way to 52 weeks, but it actually started to really pick up some steam. And for small increments, I would encourage you, it's kind of fun to maybe do this with your kids if you have kids at home, and kind of build this fund. It's a great way to kind of build some savings behavior, and for you personally to actually commit to this and create, more than $1,000 in savings just on small increments over 52 weeks. So throwing lots of information at you guys, but just trying to be creative as we head into the holiday. Now, here is where I want you to also be careful, okay? This is one of the areas that I've been trying to research and study a little bit more myself, but the buy now, pay later credit scheme, okay? What this allows you to do, there's many of these. If you've been online shopping, I'm sure many of you have already seen, or maybe even have used some of these. I'm seeing a lot of this at the office, okay? I see it only after folks get themselves into trouble. So let me explain just kind of briefly what this is. So if you haven't seen, there's almost, I can't even remember how many of these are in the market at this point. I've researched a number of them, but I mean, PayPal, Klarna, Affirm, there's a bunch of these by now. They're popping up, all new ones all the time. Those are just some of the big ones, but it allows you to kind of pay in these increments, what I've called paying for. Sometimes it's longer, where they'll stretch it out, equal payments over a 4-week period, weekly, bi-weekly, maybe even 6 weeks. There's not most companies, and I tried to look at this from the credit impact side. How's it impacting you in terms of credit? Most of these companies do not the credit bureaus don't even collect the information since it's short, it's maybe 4 to 6 weeks. I think it's either Experian or Equifax. I have to go back and review this, but they're starting to look at some of this. But since it's not a longer term loan, it's kind of hard to factor all that into credit scoring. So where you really find this is where folks get overextended by opening too many of these accounts, and then it starts to either pull funds where we have overdrafted your account, or just the small increments start to add up to where now you've really pushed yourself into a problem with some of your other credit cards. So this is what I'm seeing on my end with buy now, pay later. I don't see a credit impact at all. Only see negative. I don't see a positive impact. I only see the negative side, because that's when most of the companies report you, is when you've gotten yourself into trouble. So you haven't met the term, 6 weeks, then you're late, or they pulled funds and the account's overdrafted. So it really becomes a debt spiral for many folks. So, but this is very attractive and it's very easy. It's easy to get this type of credit. Just want to caution you about that. Beware of this, because where I see it hurting is that if your budget is already very tight, your personal finances, you're already struggling to kind of keep your minimum payments or just pay your bills. And now here we have this easy way to buy now and pay later credit scheme, this financing approach. This can really be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Okay, this can push you really too far. And I'm seeing this more and more pop up to where people are really taking these small dollar increments and then becoming a larger problem because they don't meet the term. So just be careful as you're out there shopping. You're going to find this. This is a hot thing this year. Every indicator that I can see shows that this is going to be probably an outlier year in previous years for buy now, pay here, or pay later, buy now, pay later. So just want you to be careful, knowing that these small increments do add up and can push you too far out of your budget, create some long-term credit problems for really, $50, $75 on multiple accounts that just throw you completely out of balance. So what are some alternatives as you think about this and how to put this together? Again, I would say, rather than using a 30% interest rate and trying to look at multiple retail cards or something like that, if we're setting up a budget and we're trying to be responsible, have some type of credit impact, a positive impact, then maybe we might want to just take out a personal loan. And this would be where you could just contact a credit union, talk with a loan officer. Let's target it somewhere around $2,500, assuming that we're going to have a payment over the next 12 months or 14 months. And at the end of that term, 12, 14 months, it's paid off, and we've had 14 months of positive payment history. Okay, it's going to require some discipline. You're not going to open this loan and then multiple buy here, pay later scenarios, and then 3 credit cards. Then none of this worked. But if we approach it differently, where it's a small dollar loan and modest credit card debt, and you're just very careful on what you're doing, or we say, somewhere around 3,000 with everybody and everything, this is where we're at. This could be a positive. This could actually build some positive payment history back into your overall account. So just trying to give you some alternatives here to buy now, pay later, and just some ways to finance this holiday, if that is the challenge, without using retail cards at 30, 34% interest. Now, if your credit is strong and you qualify and you're looking at something like a 0% APR, which there are deals out in the market at this point to do this, this certainly is a good tool. Credit dependent, again, your score is going to need to be strong. You can finance this over a period of months. Usually these terms are not longer than 12 months, but sometimes shorter, but it'll all be dependent on the creditor. But certainly an option. Again, rather than using just retail cards, we find a 0% card, we pay that off within the term, we finance the holidays, have a good time, and we build some credit. So always trying to find ways for us to build positive credit history. So lastly, let's just get back to our tips again. Talked a lot about, just being careful. Want to encourage you as we set up our overall budget this year, just be, as we say here, be proactive. That is, think ahead, think about what we're really wanting to accomplish. This should be, a time of joy and a time to just engage with your family. And again, just the better the plan, the better the outcome. And if we just take a few steps back and really think about where we want to go and how to get there, we're going to save ourselves money. We'll avoid overspending, and we'll also avoid long-term credit consequences. So just be proactive. That's what we're here to do today. Make a plan, stick to the plan. And if we can do that, we're going to head into 2025 without going deeper and deeper into debt. This year, again, I just want to encourage you, if you're in a situation where we have some money problems or we're already carrying some high credit card debt, as I've shown through some of the data, that's certainly the picture that I'm seeing out here and what I'm seeing at the office as well. Adjust your expectations this year. It's, again, if we can, the better we can target things and the better that maybe we can work with other family members and just be creative about what we're doing this year, targeting things to some of our highest priorities. Adjusting those expectations this year can really make a tremendous difference financially. We'll get through the holiday season where folks feel the joy and the excitement, but we know we've gotten through it responsibly. Delayed gratification, okay? If there is something that just comes across and it's, you gotta have it. Man, this is the greatest gift ever. I can't wait to get this thing. It happens. The kids get excited about something, or maybe you've gotten excited about something. If that something is very expensive, then I would suggest maybe a cooling off period. As they say, walk away for 24 hours, come back, and does it still look as attractive as it did? Delayed gratification can go a long way, and it can save us a lot of money in making those purchases that maybe we would have financed on a 30% credit card or just making a bad choice. So just be cautious. Delayed gratification is generally a good idea when something's just maybe out of reach for us at the time. And then lastly, we'll look at some comparison shopping. Most folks are already pretty good at this anyway if you're online, but comparison shopping is a very, very important way to, it's a very good way to save funds. And I think what you'll find is some really great deals once you get online and start to look at different places to buy these items. Comparison shopping is always going to save you money. And besides that, if you've gone this far and you stuck with me this far, then happy holidays. I would say that where we're at right now is just really stepping back, thinking about what's most important, and then figuring out how we're going to finance that. And if we can do those three broad themes, we're going to get through this holiday season without accumulating a lot of debt, and we're going to have a great time doing it. So throwing a lot of information at you, and what I'm going to try to do now, I'm going to try to transition us over to a spreadsheet here to share with you. And hopefully you can see that on your end now. So what I've done here, so this is what you'll be able to download this. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. You'll be able to download this and start to put together your holiday budget. This is it. So what I think is nice about this is here, again, I'm going to estimate $1,500, okay? And then right now we're just playing around with some numbers. I wanted to show you something I learned through practice on this spreadsheet that will probably save you some time, because I was looking at my numbers as I started to put this through. You'll see this little tab here, and you'll have a little caution symbol. We want to restore that to calculated formula. So if you start to see that your numbers just don't seem to change correctly, let's restore that to our calculated formula. Again, over here, I did the same thing. Okay, a little learning curve there for me as I work through some of the spreadsheet stuff. But so here, what I've tried to do, we set up an actual, we know that somewhere around $1,500, I'm just putting this number together, we're going to start to actually put this plan into practice. This year, I'm going to have to make some changes. I'm going to narrow things down, and you can use this. This will download right into you can download this budget. It's all set up with the formula, and it will show you what you've budgeted and then what your actual spending is. And then you will calculate over here this difference, okay? So, let's look at decorations, for instance. I put 50 in. Here it is at the holidays. I calculated $300 on groceries. I'm just playing around with some numbers. What they call libations here, some drinks, if you're planning some wine or whatever it might be. You can start to put some numbers in here. Some folks like to decorate, and you're putting some numbers together. Let's say we're going to go out. Well, this year, the tree, we have a really bad tree. We're going to have to buy a new Christmas tree. That's probably going to be what, $125 maybe? Trees are not like, so now it's starting to estimate what our overall budget is. So we're going to start to play around with these numbers. So you just start to work through the spreadsheet. I've got a place here for travel. We've got a place here for entertainment. And you could download two of these. You could download this multiple times. One of these, you could just kind of go in here and rename this if you wanted to Thanksgiving, or you can change this. You might even make it unique to certain people if you wanted to. So you could get creative with this. But the nice thing about this is, here again, we're kind of budgeting here. We put our budget numbers in. This is what we're hoping to spend. This is what we're planning to spend. And you're going to have to go back into your account and look at what you actually spent. So let's say in this case, I actually spent $75. Okay. And then for decorations on the tree, not only did I have to get the tree, but then the kids got excited about an inflatable thing that they wanted in the front yard or whatever. So I wind up spending $200. So now I'm starting to narrow this budget down. And this is where you start to see all those different choices really start to affect your bottom line. I didn't have a lot for charitable donations because I overspent on the Christmas tree. So now I'm feeling guilty that I didn't spend enough. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to spend a little bit more money. I'm going to double that, So I'm going to say 125 here. You see my difference is down to $520 here now. And then, gift wrap. I'm going to budget, let's say I was going to, I don't know, let's say $50 here. And actually, I had to do some shipping and some postage and things like that. I'm just, for our purposes, I'll just say $75. Where am I at now? $445. So you start to see where we're at. Okay, this is really this is going to be helpful, I think, overall. For you to just put some of this stuff together. So, I'm going to send someone a package here. I'm going to send multiple packages. That's going to cost me, I was planning to spend no more than about $75. And then it turns out it's going to cost me close to $100. And I'm just playing around with numbers. Okay, 345 is what I have left. I think you get the point, okay? So what I'd say is use this budget, just use this budget to kind of figure out what your expenses are really going to look like. And if you can go back and kind of do some of those things that we've talked about, narrowing your priorities, figuring out what things are most important, I think the interaction between your bank account and tracking and what you're actually doing here on paper with budgeting, you should be able to get through this holiday season without having too many headaches. And with that, I would say again, happy holidays to everyone. I know we've thrown a lot of information at you today, but I'll close here, Kelly, and take any questions that we might have.
All right, thank you, Todd, for taking us through the presentation and that tracker. For anybody who would like to access the tracker, that is in the handout section of your attendee panel. It's an Excel sheet that you're able to open and download if you'd like to use that as a resource for yourself. So we'll go ahead and open it up for questions in the time we have remaining. The first question, Todd, is what are some common mistakes people can make when creating a holiday gift budget, and how can we avoid them?
Okay, restate that again, Kelly. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
It says, what are some common mistakes people can make when creating a holiday gift budget, and how can we avoid them?
Yeah, I think there's two big ones that I would encourage you for common mistakes. Um, well, one, again, I'm a real stickler for impulse purchases. Okay, I think that's one of the areas. Impulse purchases, whether it's holidays or not, impulse purchases just tend to get us into a lot of trouble. So the better the plan, the more likely you are to stay within budget and not to overspend. Impulse purchases, if you're going out and you're making those purchases last minute, or if it's an impulsive buy, something like that, you just tend to overspend in all cases. So again, planning is always going to be key. Just really figuring out, the better the preparation right now, the less likely you are to overspend, make that last minute rush, be impulsive in your buying. The other thing I would encourage you to do, a common mistake, I think, is being too open to some of these credit card deals, or even the buy now, pay later scheme. I'm really concerned about that because I'm seeing so many. I'm seeing that's really new this year for me, to see the number of buy now, pay later issues and it just really is just part of our market at this point. Some of this, the traditional part of this would be you're at a retail store, someone offers you, they encourage you to sign up for a credit card, and then you open credit cards or you close them. I don't like to see that because I think it's a common mistake. There's other ways to do this with financing things other than opening and closing credit cards, or carrying that credit card debt over the next year at a high rate. But the other thing I would say, I think it's going to be an emerging problem, is the buy now, pay later credit scheme, because it's so easy to do. And I would say this year, for me, that's one of the things I'm really watching, is because I'm seeing so many families get themselves into trouble with that particular approach. It's throwing their accounts out of balance. They're overdrafting their accounts, and then once they have overdraft problems, now it's everything's kind of tied to other problems. They're late on credit cards. Next thing you know, the whole budget's just completely out of whack. So common mistakes there, again, impulsive buys, and just be careful about how you finance things this year.
Our next question is asking, do you have any tips for sticking to a budget when unexpected expenses come up during the holiday season?
Yeah, unexpected, and sticking to your budget. Unexpected things are going to happen. Okay, I mean it's funny because I was talking with Kelly today about the number of unexpected things that have happened to me in the last week or today. With holiday expenses, there's those unexpected things. Might be something that just comes up. It's not necessarily an impulsive purchase, but so many things are going to come up. I would say, again, the closer your budget is to, this is where it's going to be really, really difficult. You want to set a number that you think is reasonable. That's that number. I started with $1,500. So I would say the best way to do this with unexpected expenses is that you're going to have to make those trade-offs throughout the budget, in the planning process. So if you've budgeted something like $95 for a particular something, I don't know, let's just say that it's a particular gift. If we can save a little bit of money by comparison shopping and get that for 85, and if I can do that over multiple purchases, what that's doing is I might be able to find some savings there that is really, it pads my budget a little bit, so that if something does come up from comparison shopping alone, I've kind of saved myself, maybe $40, $50. It helps add something back into the budget that I didn't expect. So it's not a perfect picture. If those unexpected things do come up, that's where inevitably you just wind up having to you're going to have to wind up eating the cost. Comparison shopping, making a plan, all those kind of proactive things that we do, those are things that we hope and assume through budgeting will save us when it comes to those unexpected, expenses. But right now, if you can build a fund, we talked about that. Even if I can put a couple $100 into that fund, or just transfer some money over into my savings, that is kind of thinking about it like my emergency money that I might need to get through the holiday season. That small dollar amount could be enough to kind of piece things back together again, get me back within balance. So I would just encourage you, again, be proactive in your planning. Maybe put some couple $100 into extra into a savings fund, just in case there's something that's unexpected. And then lastly, just try to do as much comparison shopping as possible to find those additional savings. If you can do those things, I think you'll probably get pretty close to your overall plan.
And it looks like this might be our last question. It says, how can we set realistic gift expectations with friends and family without feeling awkward?
Well, all of us, well, yeah, that's difficult, because behavior, we want to certainly show our love, our respect, our the joy of the holidays with folks. I think what we have to do in a situation like this is we have to just be honest about the actual context we're in right now. We come through a couple of years of high inflation, things like that. I think the way you approach that is you have that conversation about just kind of where things are at. Just be honest, just be honest with folks. This is where I'm at with my budget this year. I'm going to have to make some changes this year. I'm cutting back a little bit. I'm actually having some of these conversations with my own family. And we've all kind of, once we opened that conversation up, hey, it's been kind of tough, what can we do this year to, make a few cuts, but let's have a great time. I think if you can just be honest about that conversation, I think most folks are going to see that it's the reasonable thing to do. And I think it will not be in the end as awkward maybe as it feels right now. I think once you maybe just be honest and lay that out there in a way that says, hey, here's where we're at. What's most important to you? How can we shape some of these priorities this year? What sounds, interesting this year? How do we do this? I think that conversation will probably take off. It's really difficult for me to imagine that it would go otherwise, only because all of us have felt the pinch of inflation for the last 2 years. So it's, I think most folks are looking at this and saying, I don't quite have as much as maybe I had a couple years ago to do all this. I think you'll be fine. Be honest with yourself, be honest with others. And I think that's always a strong policy to follow.
All right, great answer. Thank you, Todd, for taking us through the presentation and helping to answer those great questions that came through. We are up on our time, so that is going to conclude our Q&A session for today. If you have any additional questions that you'd like to reach out to Todd about directly, his contact information is up on the screen. Feel free to reach out and connect. But with that, that is going to conclude today's webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.